Moses had died on the eastern side of the Jordan River, as the children of Israel had gathered there before crossing over. The Lord had spoken to Joshua to now lead the people, but to be careful to meditate day and night in the Word of God, and to be very courageous, and the Lord would be with him and give him possession of all the land. Joshua had then addressed the officers. In 3 days they would cross the Jordan, and the officers had responded, "Just as we listened to Moses in all things, so we will listen to you. Only the Lord your God be with you, as he was with Moses." That's always a challenge for people working together, to have confidence in the leader. Joshua had sent out 2 spies, and they had returned reporting that the people of the land were fearful of the Israelites. When we continue reading in Joshua chapter 3. Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Acacia Grove and came to the Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there, before they crossed over. So it was after 3 days that the officers went through the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, "When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then you shall set out from your place, and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for you have not passed this way before." And Joshua said to the people, "Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you." Then Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, "Take up the ark of the covenant, and cross over before the people." So they took up the ark of the covenant, and went before the people. And the Lord said to Joshua, "This day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. You shall command the priests who bear the ark of the covenant, saying, When you have come to the edge of the water of the Jordan, you shall stand in the Jordan." So Joshua said to the children of Israel, "Come here and hear the words of the Lord your God." And Joshua said, "By this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Hivites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over before you into the Jordan. Now therefore take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man from every tribe. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off, the waters that come down from upstream, and they shall stand as a heap." So it was when the children of Israel set out from their camp to cross over the Jordan, with the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and as those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks during the whole time of harvest, then the waters which came down from upstream stood still, and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zaratan. So the waters that went down into the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea, failed, and were cut off, and the people crossed over opposite Jericho. Then the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel crossed over on dry ground, until all the people had crossed completely over the Jordan. My name's Arthur. I thank you for joining me as we share Joshua chapter 3 together. Well, as I said, following a leader can always be a challenge. and you need to have confidence in Christian work that the leader is a godly person. What are the credentials for Joshua? Well, he was, 40 years earlier, one of the spies who had gone into the land. And during that 40 years, he had stood beside Moses. But he'd never raised himself up to depose Moses. He'd never said, Moses, you're getting too old now. It's my time to take over. No, he had patiently waited, not knowing what the Lord's plan was and not presuming that it focused on him, until such time as the Lord selected him out and told Moses to identify Joshua as the next leader. But it still required the word of the Lord to appoint Joshua as leader. And the promise that the Lord gave Joshua was that he was to meditate day and night in the scriptures that Moses had given them. The importance of this is that the scriptures are not just an ordinary book, but they operate at multiple levels. Joshua, no doubt, had written out the scriptures. He knew what was in there at a technical level, at the word level. But the full meaning of what was written there is only gained by meditating and thinking about the things that are said. We have an example of that. There's a rule that says you shall not muzzle the ox while it treads out the grain. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? No, it's not at all. Paul explains he's not talking about oxen. He's talking about supporting workers for the Lord, and that they need to be provided for while they are doing their work. You don't expect them to work and not to eat. And so we have a whole health and safety protocol set up, examining workplaces to make sure that they are safe, based on the simple rule that Moses gave: if you dig a hole, you must cover it up, or otherwise you're responsible if someone falls in the hole. The Word of God needs to be applied, and the Spirit of God is the one who shows us its meaning, which is why Joshua had to meditate on it. God had a plan and a program. On a particular day, he would cut off the Jordan, which was in flood. This is springtime. The snow on Mount Hermon, way north of the Sea of Galilee, was melting. There would be a flush of water in the Sea of Galilee, and the waters of the Jordan flooded their banks at this time of the year. So instead of the Jordan being maybe 50 metres across, it's probably several kilometres across floodwater. But the Lord would block off the Jordan upstream, so the children of Israel could walk across in dry land. He had a particular day and time that he was going to do that. And so he gave instructions to Joshua to bring the children of Israel to the banks. And on a particular day, the priests were to step into the water. And when they stepped into the water, then the waters would recede, and they would be able to progress into the midst of the Jordan. And the people would be 2,000 cubits, that's about a kilometre, behind them. And when the water was completely cut off, the Israelites were able to cross over on dry land, every one of them, before the waters began to flow again. And in this way, we see the Lord exalting Joshua as one who was to be their leader. He wasn't stymied at the first post, crossing the Jordan River. And when God's people are doing God's work, they are often confronted with impossible barriers. But the Lord provides a way through the difficulties. When we are following his plan, we look to him and humbly walk in the steps that he shows us. By this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites.